Okay.
All right.
So introduction for Doug, is quite a lengthy bio in the meeting invite. If you want to read even more about
Yeah,
what he
you
did.
can just shorten it up.
I will shorten it
You
up.
can even get the.
So Doug has been an avid astronomer since 1996, and he's developed aerospace communication devices for the space and aeronautics industry after graduating from North Carolina State University.
Go State.
And he's previously served the Raleigh Astronomy Club as a co-chair, public information contact, and astronomical league coordinator. In 2019, he was invited to become a NASA JPL Solar System Ambassador and was awarded the title of Master Observer by Astronomical League in 2021. And then in 2022, he was invited by the National Park Service to become an interpretive astronomy ranger at Glacier National Park. Doug,
All right. Thanks, Naveen. Let's just give me just a minute to get
we've got some
this shared, and once we get through this.
So just
There we go.
Yep.
Yeah, there we go. All right. Awesome. I think we're good. Can everybody hear me? All right. Thank you so much, Naveen. And it's great to see everybody tonight. It's been roughly about almost like a good 5, maybe 5.5 months since I've seen you guys. I kind of went on an extended tour this year. But as Naveen said, I was selected a couple of years ago to be a National Park Service astronomer. And so I joined the National Park Service, and I go to various national parks and run astronomy programs for the National Park Service. It's a lot of fun. And we will talk a little bit about what's entailed. Now, if you're interested in Glacier National Park, I actually did a talk that was a little more comprehensive with respect to Glacier last year, and that's actually up on our website, and you can view that actually on our YouTube site. And so you can also view that as well. Tonight's presentation will be a little bit more different because it's going to be a bit more astronomy and astronomy program related. But I'm certainly willing to answer any questions about going to Glacier, what it takes to live at Glacier, things like that. So I'll be happy to do that as well. So we're talking about Glacier National Park. And let's see here. I can see it clicking, but it's not moving.
Yeah, you're probably gonna have to click on the presentation stuff with the mouse. With the mouse. Not that. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. There you go. No worries. So again, we'll just have a really quick overview. We'll talk about the program, what our teams look like, talk about star parties. I do want to bring a few suggestions that I actually learned while I was there back to our club. And then we'll actually talk about what it means to be an interpretive astronomer. And then we'll look at some of the night sky images that I was able to capture while I was out at Glacier. All right, so Glacier National Park, this is actually what the park looks like. Glacier National Park is actually, it's actually owned by 3 entities. It is an international peace park. If you can see here, here's the Canadian border, and part of it comes up here, and that's known as the Waterton Peace. All along here where you see the Continental Divide, everything east here belongs to the Blackfeet Nation, and everything down here belongs to the United States government. So there's actually 3 nations involved with Glacier National Park, and it is an international peace park. The kind of the philosophy of the park is to promote peace and peaceful relations among nations, and I think they do a very, very good job of it. So anyway, that's kind of what the park is. Over here on the west side is more of the leeward side. So basically this is all really green and lush. Over here is the windward side of the park. And so there's a lot of, it's more, a bit more barren, but very, it's beautiful. There's a lot of, I would say it's an austere beauty. And it's a really wonderful place to visit. There's a lot of great places to visit around here, a lot of great venues. But we're going to go on because we wanted to get more into what's going on at the park. I do want to kind of point out that indigenous peoples of the U.S. have occupied this area for roughly 10,000 years. So we've only been around barely 250. So, and in this area, not more than maybe 150. So they've actually been here a lot longer than us. So it's really important that we maintain peaceful relations and really try to actually put some work into understanding their culture and try to actually put that into the things that we teach as we're out in the field. The Blackfeet have a really rich sky lore, so they have a lot of stories and moral tales that actually help govern their people as they govern themselves and as they kind of interact with one another. So it's kind of an interesting mix there. And it's so whenever you're doing astronomy out, it's really important whether you're at Glacier or some other place, if there are stories, legends, or such from other nations, it makes make a good idea that you actually try to learn that and pass that on to other people. All right. Okay, so the next slide is coming up. With Glacier National Park, everything and all the science that occurs in the park is actually supported by a private entity called the Nature Conservancy, Glacier Nature Conservancy. And what they do is they have a ton of programs. Now I'm going to run through this and we'll talk about this red line in just a minute, but there's over 44 things that they do. And so they're actually putting money into the park and they're providing services. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, I'm going to go back here now through these slides. Astronomy is not on there, right? But the reason why is because they actually just have one blanket program, which is called Promoting Science Education for Park Visitors. And in that, under that are interpretive night sky programs and astronomy. And so that's where they put that. And so, and one thing is that when we're dealing with other like funding entities and stuff like that, they may not have a place for necessarily a placeholder for astronomy, but the way that you can actually insert a program is actually, you don't call it a program, you actually call it an interpretive program under whatever they've got. So basically that's what the Conservancy did. And they actually, and they're fully funding that program. It's not just, they're not just doling out very small amounts. They're really putting a lot of money into, not only a lot of money, but also a lot of effort into finding expertise around the US and people that can actually do astronomy. And so they kind of, for the astronomy, they're looking for people that can operate an average Dobsonian scope, because you need people who can actually provide that experiential part of actually looking into an eyepiece, finding an object, looking into an eyepiece, and telling people what they're looking at. And then they're also looking for people who can actually do astrophotography. Now, I am no king of astrophotography in this group. Many of you that are sitting right here in this group are so much better than I am, but I was good enough that I could actually operate their scopes and get their scopes producing decent images, and those images appeared on a monitor, and we were able to actually talk to the crowd and teach the crowd about what they were looking at. And so that's how I was actually able to join this group, and hopefully I did a good job for them. I think I did, but and you'll see it in just a few minutes. But anyway, this is really where Glacier actually and the Conservancy supports astronomy. Now, I do want to say, number one, shameless commercialism here. You can donate to the Conservancy. You will if you do donate. I did say, I mistakenly said that it's a private organization, but it is a nonprofit organization. So your donation does go into providing. It is a 501c3, and you can actually get your donation in there for tax purposes. But also too, all the money that goes into the Conservancy does go to supporting a lot of programs. And there's a lot of science going on. It's not just astronomy. There's there's stuff with architectural work. There's stuff with flora and fauna. They're basically trying to also preserve indigenous culture of indigenous peoples. They are doing a fantastic job in really 360 degrees of really trying to support Glacier National Park and also make it into something that is an entity that can just kind of move forward into the future. And quite a few volunteers go out there every year. All right. So let's go back to our map now. And when we talk about astronomy at Glacier National Park, it actually happens in 3 main places, at least when it turns in terms of schedule. Now, we do have a couple of pop-up events that will occur at various places, unbeknownst to people, but our published events occur in 3 places. So over here, this is on the leeward side where it's green and lush and everything. So this is Apgar. There are 2 places in Apgar. There's Apgar Village and Apgar Visitor Center. And you can kind of see there's 2 little dots right there. So we do solar observing on this west side of the park. We do solar observing on the west side and also nighttime observing there. Logan Pass, which is at the very middle of the park. That's where we actually do our star parties. We perform star parties there, usually in the season, which really runs from July through September. We'll have a star party a month there. It's always a lot of fun. And then over here on the east side, we have an east team, and that east team also does astronomy. Now, just to talk a little bit about that organization. So Debbie Smith is the head of the organization. She is, if you look at her title, she's an interpreter, she kind of manages all interpreters in the over on the east side. She really works at the director level, where she is directing teams of people with respect to interpretive sciences, interpretive learning, and she does a fantastic job of managing the organization. For astronomy, the manager of astronomy is Dory Gorsica. Dory actually manages all the teams, both on the east side and the west side. And then we have Bob Van Gundy. Now, Bob he's really associated with our area quite a bit, graduated from UNC and everything. And he is the liaison between the two astronomy teams. Great guy, and he's also like, again, anything that breaks, usually poor old Bob is tasked with fixing it, but he does a fantastic job at it. On the east side, we have 2 guys from Massachusetts, John Harrington, who is an astronomer, an actual astronomer. The rest of us are all amateur astronomers, so we're there for the love of the hobby. We have Glenn Torillo, and these guys actually perform or work on the east side program. And then Mike Huckalock, who is my partner. Mike is a 9-year veteran of the program. Mike is an expert at finding things in the night sky with a Dobsonian telescope. He's really quite good. He's also really good at interpretive stories for the constellations. He knows not just one set of stories like what we might think of from the Greco-Roman side, but he also knows tales from the indigenous peoples and also tales from other countries. Mike actually immigrated, and him and his parents actually immigrated from Ukraine about way back in the 1950s. So but he's a great guy, and we've had a good partnership out there on the west side. Of course, you guys know about me, and so that's me right there at the very end. I've only been doing this for about 2 years, but it's a lot of fun running these programs. All right.
Where you have the elevation of where you have the parties at, what the elevation?
Yeah, so it's over 6,000. It's over 6,600 feet at Logan Pass. Okay, I'm going to make a gap here. It might be 6,692, something like that. But it's under 7,000 feet, but over 6,000. Mm-hmm. But it does afford you some really nice views of the night sky up there at Logan Pass. So we do have an east side program, and one of the really neat things about the east side is that they have a dome with a 20-inch Dahl-Kirkham plane wave telescope inside the dome. Their program actually runs first of all, they have solar observing, which they run Thursday through Saturdays, about 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. And then on those same days, there's nighttime observing, 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. All right. This is Bob Van Gundy again here. There's John Harrington. one of the really cool things is about the dome is they have these on both sides of the dome. They have these nice TV sets that they can actually project what the Dahl Kirkham scope is actually seeing or observing. So those actually get to be put out there. And then on the sides here, Glenn Torillo usually has a Dobsonian and maybe a CPC-11 out there doing astronomy, so people can have that experiential piece of actually putting eye to eyepiece, right? So there are the thing is that all kinds of things happen over the winter though, and we when we opened the dome this year, guess what was inside? That and that. All right, you can laugh now. So so yeah, we actually I do want to give a shout out to Dana. I was going to say RAC NIDS were in there, but so this is Gary Scott, a club member. Gary now lives in Texas, but he remains to be a club member. And then of course Dana came out as well and his son Patrick to visit me, and I will say that the observatory is not open for public tour, so it was only by special unction that you were able to get in there, Dana. All right, so anyway, but yeah, this is we'll see a picture of the scope in just I think the next slide, but this is a software bisque mount. Of course, this is a solid pier mount here. And then of course this is a polyurethane dome that they use to house a scope. And here we go. This is Mike Huckluck and myself out here. We actually got coaxed Bob Van Gundy to climb up on a ladder and poke his head through the open dome to take our pictures. But so this is the plane wave right here, and it's a fantastic scope. You'll see some great images in just a moment.
Is that the same elevation?
No, it is not. I believe that I'm going to speculate. Okay, I believe that both the west side and the east side are roughly about 4,000 feet. So when you're kind of at the top when you're at Logan, so you're going down to both of them. I believe they're both somewhere right around a bit more than 4,000 feet. You might want to look that up, but I do know that Apgar is right around 4,000 feet in elevation. Not quite sure what St. Mary's is, but I think it's also around 4,000. Pretty high. Yeah, the one of the most popular trails, the Highland Trail, kind of goes up over around the garden wall, and that is way up. But I don't know the elevations on those trails, but they are quite impressive. There are no markings on the difficulty, the trails that I noticed out there. So I mean, let me just say this, and I'm glad you're bringing this up, Frank. So whenever you're out in a place like any national park that's rural and kind of remote, like Glacier, or let's say Grand Tetons, or Yellowstone, or any of the parks that are worth going to. Let me just say that. First of all, you have to realize that you are in a remote location. So you really need to make sure that you bring your meds with you, make sure that you have water and are hydrated. In the case of Glacier and really almost any of them, you really need to make sure that you have bear spray or some type of protective element, because there are animals out there. You are not on the top of the food chain when you're in these parks. So you need to be respectful of the nature that's around there. And let me just say this, please do not try to approach any of these animals out there. Where we're at it's not uncommon to see animals just trotting through the grounds, through the parking lots and stuff like that. And most people will say they'll look at a big horned sheep or a mountain goat or something like that, and they say, "Oh, I can just run up there and touch that." Don't do that, please, because it could be very, very painful. This year, they also released, the Blackfeet Nation released bison into the park. So, you're talking about, an animal that is somewhere between, 700 to 1,500 pounds, depending on whether it's male or female. And they are beautiful, majestic animals. But if they are spooked, they will crunch your vehicle in a heartbeat. Okay. And if you're not in a vehicle, they will crunch you in a heartbeat. It's just all there is to it. So, and especially this year, there has been we had a lot of issues this year with violence with respect to the grizzlies. They were especially aggressive this year. So there had been, and even if you're an experienced person, we actually had one story where there was a gentleman who was experienced. He had bear spray. He also had a firearm with him, and he got in the wrong place. And literally a grizzly came and slapped him and literally knocked his jaw out of his head. Okay. Now he had two friends that were with him, and of course, they neutralized the grizzly. But these are powerful creatures. Has anybody ever seen The Revenant? Okay, well, that's probably what happened there. That mauling was tame compared to what these guys do. I mean, they are incredibly powerful creatures. So do not in any way approach them. Oh, thanks. So Logan Pass is 6,647 feet above sea level. Thanks to Jim Presley there. Absolutely not. Well, I don't know if that's the fine or not, but it's just incredibly dangerous to do that. So, I mean, you can really enjoy these places. Let me just tell you, they are, especially Glacier, is a place of idyllic beauty. It is beautiful. It's incredible. But if you want to experience that incredible nature, you have to respect what's out there. You really do. Grizzly, in my humble opinion, are more dangerous than black bear, but black bear are also dangerous. So please do not even don't mess around with that, Well, I know that Dana and I saw mother grizzly with two cubs when we were out at Glacier, and I know I saw a black bear myself out at Glacier. I mean, literally, I mean they own the park. We're just there to enjoy and kind of stay out of the way.
It's got to be in a approved para container that knocks out all the spill. Otherwise, they'll watch you a $500 ticket.
I can't comment on any of the fines, okay? But I can say that that's a good idea, that you make sure that you do contain your food. All right, let's move on. All right. So on the west side, we also, of course, we do not have an observatory on the west side. Now, I have heard that there are plans to build one on the west side, and I hope that will happen. But for now, we have an equipment van there, and all of our equipment is actually is stored in here. We also have a similar van on the east side as well, and that's where we keep the Dobsonians and the CPCs. But in this one, we have a CPC 11. And we've got two Dobsonians. We also have various audio visual equipment, speakers, TV set, monitor, stuff like that. So, and of course, our external power that we need to run those things with. This is really pretty. They did a fantastic job on creating these vans for us. This is something that the Conservancy provided. It stays parked in the Apgar Visitor Center parking lot all year long. Again, just a really great, I love looking at that, and I just love always going there, and so it's really convenient. This back just kind of flips down, and we just pull the stuff out, and we're ready to go pretty much. We have I'll show you in just a second, but we have two Dobsonians. We have a CPC 11, and the CPC 11's on a JMR cart, so all you got to do is just kind of roll it out. So that's really nice. Solar observing for us is Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So we basically overlap the east by one day, but this just means that we're going to have continual astronomy going on during the season, all the way through the season. Again, that season usually runs roughly July 1 through September 9, somewhere in that time frame.
If I go as any solar observing on Sunday, I'll bring some of my panels so I can show the people who come to church to see how the heavens declare the glory of God.
Certainly. All right. So solar observing again Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That's 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Actually, Mike Huckluck and I were able to kind of set that time ourselves. And it makes it better for us over on the west side. And I'll show you one in a minute. And then nighttime observing is Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. like the other one. But Mike and I usually wind up staying way past, because what we'll do is we like to kind of stay out there until the last person is done looking through scopes. And so there's been many nights that we've stayed there till like 2 a.m. And it is a blast. I mean, I gotta tell you, this is a great place to observe from. So let's go on. All right, so we do have office hours, and this is our office. And so this is where we do our solar observing from. We're on the grass and everything. We do choose an early point time, because trying to do solar observing from a parking lot is like really hot. So it's so much better doing it right here. This is actually in the Apgar Village. If you do go to Glacier, there are two Apgars. One is Apgar Village, and then there's Apgar Visitor Center. And the two are about a mile apart from one another. So just realize that. And I should say that if you do go there, there is not a bus from one to the other. So you either have to walk or drive, okay? So just remember that when you go there. This is a great place because, of course, Lake McDonald's back here. We've got the beautiful mountains and everything. But it's also it's a natural gathering place for people. And there's also ice cream just across the street. So that makes it helpful. Mike usually runs this is a 5-inch Orion refractor. He's usually a white light filter on that. And I usually run the 60 millimeter solar scope from Coronado. I think this one is a single stack, but it's a great scope. We got some great views this year. We actually saw a solar flare, and it was just incredible while that was going on.
I got a picture.
Of course, we can't keep all the RAC people away. So here's Dana actually looking through our solar scope and everything.
The solar flare right there on the top.
Yeah, but that's coming off the old bean right there. Yeah, that I would call that. That would be known as a prominence. All right, so yeah, but this is it's a great time, and we really have a lot of fun with our crowd and everything, and people love looking through these scopes. And so the interest in space and astronomy is just really strong these days. People are super excited about it, and so any opportunity that you can get to engage the public is you definitely want to take it. I'll tell you a little bit later. I'll have some statistics on the numbers of peoples that we actually saw, but our astronomy program on the west side is incredibly popular. Right. Do you want to give a shout out to Dana and Patrick? We're out here. They actually came out to visit Debbie and I, and we had a good time out there. I'm glad you guys came. This is actually a view of Jackson Glacier. Okay. There it is right there. That tiny little patch of ice is Jackson Glacier. Now, over here on these boards right here, they actually show Jackson Glacier 50 years ago, and it completely covered that valley, and those trees weren't even there. Okay, so this is just to highlight the fact that we are losing the glaciers. I think they had something like initially 215. They only have something like 15 or so left, and they're dwindling. And this is so basically climate change is real. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. 3,000 glaciers across the globe can't be wrong. So but yeah, they are losing this, and also the issue they have here is a gradual drying of the environment. So this is something that is really a concern. There have been estimates that maybe we have another 55 years left of actually these great north forests before they begin to actually recede and dwindle. So just something to bear in mind. So I'd go now if you get a chance. All right. So anyway, this is an incredibly beautiful place, and we had a great time out there. All right. One of the things that we did in solar viewing, and I think this would be really great if we did something like this in the club. We actually had laminated sheets. Now, all of us have seen these pictures at one time or another on the web. It's just a matter of, they make really great conversation items if you can laminate them, put them out on a table and everything. And this is something that Mike Hucklelock likes to do. We put them out on a table, and then you can have a lot of great conversations with people about the sun-earth relationship, what the relationship of our magnetic field is. Kind of the thing that's always on people's minds are we going to see aurora tonight? And we had a lot of great opportunities to see aurora. But Dana's having a problem back there because somebody missed their opportunity to see aurora. But most of the times though, it was cloudy. But maybe we'll have a chance later on in the slideshow to see some, maybe some that Dana missed. All right. But I think, you know, in terms of oh, there's some RAC swag I was giving away as well. But it is, I think it would be a great addition to kind of our learning is if when we do solar observing that we have something like these panels already made up, laminated, so they're not just going to, have water spilled on them and wrinkle up and everything, and you can use them over and over again. And it's a great way to train people about, talk to them about what the the sun-earth relationship is, what our magnetic field does for us, what happens when we do receive a coronal mass ejection and it hits the Earth's magnetic field. So it's a great opportunity to do that. And we have several of the panels, so Mike and I don't have to fidget over or fight over them. We can actually show the crowd. Also, too, this one I love is, of course, it's always showing the Earth's size with respect to the sun and solar flares, and people are always amazed that the Earth is so tiny. So it's a great opportunity to train people and educate the public as well.
Later, the sun sets in the summer.
Right, that's correct.
And you get all the North Pole, the sun is in the sky.
All the time, yes. Yes. All right, let's move on. Okay, so this is our night program. We're getting ready to set up for the night program. Yeah, again, it's very popular. We usually get in there around 9 o'clock, a whole hour ahead of time to set up, but people are already beginning to show up and everything. We usually encourage people to bring chairs and a light jacket, stuff like that. But yeah, if we have here's our 10-inch Dob. Mike, there's standing by our 14-inch Dobsonian. And then on the other side, let's see, there's the next one. There's the CPC 11, and I actually have that attached to a monitor. There's a computer attached to that, and we usually run our programming. Now, the west side programming is a little different than the east side. I usually run some type of astronomy program. I usually will do some type of educational program, say either based on on Venus, Mars, on or something to actually educate the public with respect to astronomy before we actually get started. Main thing is we're waiting for it to get dark, especially when we start, usually in July at 10 p.m. It's light for a long time. As Frank mentioned, the sun hardly ever sets, and it takes a really long time for it to go down. So that gives me a time to really get in a good hour-long program, just about. And then Mike, after that, Mike will do a star tour. So he'll actually point out constellations. That's when he'll take the time to actually give stories about the constellations and stuff like that. And while he's doing that, that's usually when I'm taking the CPC and actually getting it lined up and getting it all ready to go. All right. One of the things I'm going to do, of course, this is us doing setup and everything. And it's a little later. You see the moon out there. In fact, actually, we're doing teardown there, I think. But what I do want to point out here is this checklist. So one of the things we do is we have checklists for the automated scopes. So one of the things I was thinking that I took a picture of this and brought it along with me, because one of the things that this is a laminated checklist that stays with the CPC 11. So whether I'm there or somebody else is there or anyone, you can just come along behind me and actually do the setup for the scope, and you're ready to go. So like in our telescope loaner program, I know that we have a lot of people who they'll get a scope, and they won't know what to do with it for months. I don't know if you're experiencing that yet or not, Rob, but I know that when Mike and I were doing it, it did. But And so having a checklist on how to operate the scope, and it stays with the scope, actually will, I think, guarantee a bit more success with people who actually take a scope out to loan it. Certainly, if you buy a telescope from a manufacturer like Celestron or Meade or even Orion, they don't have a checklist. They expect you to read the user manual, and then you kind of got to get an idea of what the workflow is. And so having a checklist is saying, here's a workflow. If you go through these steps, when you get to this step, you're ready to go. And so just something to think about. All right, star parties. So that's the West Side program. Now we'll talk a little bit about star parties. So who was it that mentioned smoke earlier? Was it you, Dean? Yeah. So Dean mentioned that. How'd you do with the smoke? Well, this is an example of the smoke. We had dealt with smoke and clouds and all kinds of crazy things. And so, but what I wanted to do is kind of show about how we set the star parties up at Logan Pass. You can see that we have all the astronomers literally run their cars side by side like this. So it's basically kind of creates a wall so people aren't filtering in behind us on the scopes. Over here on the other side, this is where people can come. I'll show you, I'll have another picture a little bit later, but we have lanes that they can actually enter in. There's a sandwich board. I don't know if you can see it in this one, but we actually have each one of these lanes are numbered, and there's a sandwich board out here at the front saying this scope's on M101, this scope's on the Ring Nebula, this scope's on M63, this scope is on M13. So people can see an example of a globular cluster, maybe a supernova remnant or something like that. So as they go down the line. So and then we actually have a few scopes down at the end that are just kind of free form, whatever people want to get. So basically, in terms of me, this is really where I'm set up right here. I'm focused. I'm on one object for the entire night until the cloud kind of thins out, and then I get to go on. So this the star party at Logan Pass is very popular. Here's the team again of astronomers. It was kind of cold up there and windy at the time. So, but here we are, ready to go. And we also get a lot of help from Big Sky Astronomy Club, and they come out and have their scopes out as well. So it also helps augment the team as well.
Every 1,000 feet of vertical rise you go above average terrain. The weather is equivalent to 250 miles to the north. So you might have been equivalent of central Canada.
Well, we're definitely up there and close to Canada for sure. Yep. Yeah, it's kind of unusual because last year these peaks actually had a lot of snow on them, and you can see there's like only maybe a little patch right there. So there wasn't much snowfall last year, so it was pretty dry. In fact, when I got there, it was as dry as it was when I left last year. So they didn't have a lot of snowfall. Hopefully they're going to get more this year. Okay, this photo right here is showing you more of the lanes. So there, like I said, over on this side, unfortunately, I don't have a picture of it. There's a sandwich board stating what scope is looking at what. So basically, people can look at the sandwich board and decide to go to 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So your lanes are marked off. You know where to send people. It's pretty orderly, and we get really strong crowds for these things. Now, with respect to the Logan Pass Star Party, people actually have to buy tickets. They sell tickets per vehicle. So as many people as you can put in a car and everything, they'll get on out and do that. But you really want to make sure that if you're there, these things sell out really quick. So almost the moment that they drop the tickets, usually on Thursday mornings before the Star Party, they're gone. They don't last very long at all. And again, a very popular event. Another thing we do is we stage all the people. So unlike what we do at Dorothea Dix, and people are always kind of like, like lollygagging around our scopes and stuff like that, we actually ask everyone to go into this. They have this little meeting area along the steps and everything at the Logan Pass Visitor Center. There's a screen right here. We usually have like some type of program. So they do a program before, while they're waiting for it to get dark. And then once they're done with the program, in four corners of the parking lot. They have astronomers. Everybody kind of gets a colored glow stick, and so they know to go to that particular color out at the end of the park, and so at the end of the parking lot. And then there they have an astronomer who will do a sky tour for roughly about 30 to 40 minutes. And after that, then people get to go to the scopes. But this is a really great way of managing a crowd because you get all the people concentrated in one place. Then you kind of split them up. And so you don't have everybody sitting at lane 1, lane 2, and lane 4 and 5 are starving for people. It's people are at different areas, and then they get to come up. So people who are closest to lane 1 go there. People who are closest to lane 2 or lane 3 and 4 go there. So it's a much better way of managing the crowd, in my opinion. So they do a really good job of that. These are really well attended events. We'll see in just a minute. Here's an example of people kind of waiting in line. This is where they're getting those banded glow sticks. So like all the greens will go in one corner, all the reds will go in another, blue in another, orange in another. So that's how they get to go to their sky tour. All right. Every now and then we do get a lot of cloudy weather. I got to tell you, in our first star party of the year, it was in July. We knew it was going to be difficult. We had a lot of smoke that had come down, and also too we had a lot of cloudy weather. We understood that. But in August, when we did August, everything was great. It was really good. And then I kind of looked over at the Logan Pass, part of Logan Pass that was kind of facing the east part, and I saw this like little wispy thing coming up, and there was literally a cloud that was actually moving up from the valley, and it kind of come up, and it actually wound up completely socking us in. But whether or not we get socked in or not, we still have a program. So this is kind of the thing, a lot of times what we'll do is if it's cloudy, we cancel. Right. And like Dorothea Dix has, 5,000 registrants or whatever. And what I'm kind of suggesting is that we don't cancel, that we go ahead and at least say we'll have a program of some type, do it on astrophotography, do it on, Earth, Sun, Moon relationship, something that you're going to be able to actually, the crowd's going to get to attend. Whether or not you don't get all the 5,000 people showing up, you will have somebody show up. And in case, again, even these people knew, hey, things weren't going to be good, they still hung around, and we had a really good crowd for this particular one. Now, the last star party that we actually held in September was fantastic. We had great weather, great crowds. So this was just the luck of the draw for these two. But anyway, that's kind of what we do with the star parties and everything. And I just kind of wanted to kind of get those suggestions out that we think about, in the future, unless there's rain and lightning in the forecast. And let me just say that with rain and lightning, don't mess around, But if it's just going to be cloudy and we'd already planned it, we should think about having a program anyway. And then we can entertain our people enough. We have enough projectors. We're going to run simultaneous programs in our club. So let's think about that for the future.
Is it very windy up
there? It can be windy up there. Yes. It just depends. And when it's windy up there, it's also really cold. Let me just tell you. But
if I had been there, it probably would have got tense.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I want to talk just a little bit about interpretive astronomy because it's a little different. I mean, I think that we talk around it a lot in our club, but really what we're trying to do with interpretive astronomy is that we are trying to provide an accurate story that people can relate to. And so we want people to be able to relate to astronomy. I think that our society has changed a little bit. Before maybe were more technical, and now people need to be encouraged with respect to their feelings, how they feel, how are they emotionally, basically help them to be emotionally connected. And Jim Presley, you always tell me about the story about when you actually first swung a telescope over this bright yellow star, and you saw it was Saturn, and so you were hooked at that point, you know. And I think that the point is that if people can get an experiential element in their astronomy experience, and they can repeat that over and over again, then you have a much higher probability of attracting that individual into a club like Raleigh Astronomy Club. So when like a lot of times in our groups, we usually break the ice in some way. It's important so that you can kind of get to know and maybe identify with people in the crowd. It's not so much for the crowd as it is for you. So, you know, usually I'll start off a program by trying to ask people two questions. And that is, one, where are you from, and what have you done in the park lately? And so that helps me to understand kind of, are they having some fun? Are they actually able to identify with things they're doing in the park? And then two, you know, usually I've been able to travel around quite a bit. I'm able to talk to people. So it helps break the ice. We also have to understand that our audiences are really diverse these days. I mean, you've got, you know, it's a funny thing is if you went on the street and you ask someone, in what general direction does the sun rise in? You're probably going to get 4 different answers, you know, and maybe some that you hadn't even thought of. But, you know, I have to say, Neolithic man knew where the sun rose, right? So I find it funny that we don't know ourselves. So audiences are diverse. Now, I got to say, I've really been impressed with a lot of these kids that are coming up through school now. STEM and STEAM seem to be having a real effect. So a lot of the kids are really sharp. You know, they want to know, well, do you think TRAPPIST E, D, or F has life on it? And I'm like, well, I mean, it could, you know, but I mean, they're really thinking about space. They're thinking about maybe their future experience in space. Things so the younger kids that I see coming up, especially in these programs, seem to really be dialed in to astronomy and to space science. I would say use relatable descriptions. A really good one is the habitable zone. It's, you know, most people don't know what that is, but if you tell people, well, the habitable zone is where liquid water can exist on the surface of the planet. By the way, hey, did you enjoy our water sports today? You know, people realize, okay, well, hey, I'm actually enjoying the habitable zone right there. There's you know, I'm actually able, if I go skiing or I'm gonna go on a boat ride, that's primarily because your planet is sitting in the habitable zone. So there's liquid water on your surface. But use something that's relatable to people. People like stories. So we talk, we give some really good stories about indigenous peoples, like the wolf's tail. I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But they like to hear stories, and so we try to relate astronomy facts with astronomy stories. All right, a shout out to Amy. Thou shalt not speak Messier. All right, please. We really do our best to try and not do that. Although every now and then, I hate to say it, it slips out. I had one lady come up to me while I was trying to actually get the CPC going. She was upset. You know, she didn't understand anything that I said. She was upset that it was too late, or that the program was starting too late. She wanted to know if the images were going to be in color or not. You know, so there are, again, from that diverse crowd, there are some people that feel entitled, and not a lot you can do about that. Just try to help them out in some way. Try to use some comedy if you can. Now, like comic relief with Dana there. So anyway, know your constellations. I mean, it's really good if you're doing a sky talk. Know your constellations, kind of know how they relate to one another. And then really experiential learning is best. So if you can get somebody to go up to an eyepiece and look at a globular cluster, and you've already got one sitting on your monitor, and then you say, okay, now let's go over here to the say, like I have M13 on the monitor, and then say, now let's go over here to the 14-inch and look, because we have M13 in it. Then they can go look at M13 and they can actually see what that looks like. You know, sometimes even though they're looking right at the eyepiece, they can't see, they cannot perceive it, but they keep their eye there for about maybe a minute or two. The old brain kicks in and they're actually able to perceive it, and you get that ooh ah moment, you know. So really try to encourage people to take in the experience, give them that moment where they can actually you know, give their brain a few minutes, you know, don't pressure them to move off the eyepiece, just let them calmly get it, and then they, you know, they get it, and then you have somebody who's really excited about what they saw, you know. All right, so that's what I want to say about interpretive astronomy. I think we all do this ourselves. We really try to do that as much as possible, but just I just put this list together to say, hey, here's a way that we can think about being our basically our crowd face. All right, so just a little bit, and really, I'm not going to go through everything, but really, we did really quite a few. We had about 3,500 visitors in our solar program. This is just on the west side, and roughly about 2,400 visitors over the entire time. So we put in about 172 hours basically into our night program, and about 240 hours. I'm sorry, our day program, and then about 240 hours into our night program. I will say that if you do decide to volunteer or do something like this at a national park, it might seem like a job because you're having to do this every day. But you got to remember that we all love astronomy. That's what we love about it. But it is, you know, you really do have to kind of be on it, you know. And so I will say that it's a lot like going back to work and being retired. You know, it was a bit of a shock for me, but I really did enjoy it. Overall, though, between the two programs and also between the Logan Pass, I did a few special lectures for them. We had about 10,000 people, a little over 10,000 people through the programs. So, I mean, there are a lot of people. Now, Glacier usually gets about 2 million people a year. So, you know, we're not even scratching 1% there, but still, you know, we're that 10,000, I'm really happy with, you know. So there you go. All right, let's move on. So now let's talk a little bit about some of the night sky shots, because I mean, it is an idyllic place to go. We have incredible view of the sky there. It's a solid Bortle 2 sky, bordering, you know, maybe a little bit closer to Bortle 1 in cases. But yeah, so I actually took this shot with these are basically wide field cell phone shots you're about to see. So and these are all 10 seconds using Nightcap, which is an app that you can buy. All right, first wall is the wolf's tail. The indigenous folks especially the Blackfeet, call this the wolf's tail. Of course, this is the Milky Way, and the belief is that those who have passed on are actually riding into heaven on the wolf's tail, and each one of these stars are the campfires of those who have passed away, who are riding up. In this photo right here, we're seeing this. Here's the dome. You might let's see. Is it right here? Let's see. Oh, this little guy right here. There's the coat hanger right there.
What's code hanger?
Right there.
Oh,
The coat hanger nebula right
that's
there.
actually called Rockies cluster.
I always called it the coat hanger. All right. So yeah, let's not get hold on semantics. All right. We had a great Perseid shower. You guys had a Perseid program here, right? Did you see many Perseids, or how was it? Oh, I have about 200 images of it. Was really quite. Now this was actually in the park. We actually, Mike Huckler, Debbie, and myself, we all stayed outside of the park in an RV park that was close by. So I just set up an all sky cam. You can see that there was a fair amount of light pollution with cars driving by the road and everything, but I still got some great shots. This was another 10. This camera was the ZWO ASI 678 MC. It was on a 10-second 10-second exposure loop. So. All right. Let's see next. Aurora. Did I see Aurora there? Why, yes, I did. See if I can get this to go now. All right. So Bob Van Gundy and I were trying to image. There we go. We're trying to image the Pelican Nebula, and while we were doing it, there was just a ton of red in that nebula, and we were like trying to figure out what happened. You know, why is there so much red? And we walked out of the observatory and we looked northeast, and that's what we saw. Now, I unfortunately, this is not like time lapse right beside each other because, you know, we were kind of like going in and out of the observatory because we were trying to get frames. But this is kind of the last one. You know, Steve, I don't know if this was Steve or not, but this little arc of gas that just jutted across here, maybe it could have been, but we saw also all these vertical columns that you see. Of course, there's a lot of red here, and a lot of red came out in the frames that actually you couldn't see it. But when we went to expose, we were exposing the CCD, there was just a ton of red, and so we'll see that in just a second in my image. But yeah, it was pretty incredible. It was really pretty. It's amazing to be able to see Aurora, you know. So people who come to Glacier want to see Aurora, but not everyone can. All right. That for those of you on Zoom, that's for Dana. All right. So let's go on to the next. Okay, so this is the Ring Nebula. Now, this might look a little different than the Ring Nebula that you've usually, because usually there's a more red and blue in this. But this was actually during the first star party where we had a lot of smoke. And so I think this is why it became more yellowish and red in this. But this was just basically, I did this with the C11. It's got basically, it has a star Zona Rev 4 hyperstar on it. And then the chip size on the Malin is only 22 millimeters, so roughly about a 24.5 second or 24.5x, you know. And I did pinch this out, so that's why it looks so large. Okay. But yeah. Here's M13. And so this is basically another 10-second exposure with 23 frames per second. See, how many frames did I have in this thing? I don't think I said, did I? But 331 frames. So I had quite a few frames in it, but turned out really well. I was pleased with that. This is what the Whirlpool. This is the Whirlpool Galaxy that you can get with the CPC. It was we'll see in a minute what you can get with the plane wave, what the difference that of 10 inches in diameter makes. But this is Whirlpool Galaxy. Again, only another 10-second exposure. So that's the point. You're getting this kind of detail in a 10-second exposure. So I had a little fun with some this is actually the tower on top of the relay tower on top of one of the mountains. We had 2 full moons in 1 month. That was in July. And so I took an opportunity. Now this is a short little animation here. Let's see if I can get this to run. Now there it goes. But I only took a few frames, and then later on realized, oh, I wish I would have taken like a bunch more frames because that looked pretty fun. But yeah, we're actually down here in the parking lot. I'm actually looking at the tower, and I thought, well, I won't be able to see much with the full moon, so I'll just go ahead and take the tower. All right, so here's M101, and so we had a supernova. It was this one right here, I believe, right here. That's where the supernova was. This is a little NGC object right there. Anyway, so this is what I could pick up with the again with the CPC. So it turned out pretty decent as a Whirlpool. All right, going on to the plane wave. I did get a few nights to play with the plane wave while I was out there. This is Bode's Galaxy M81. One of my favorite galaxies. I don't know why I love it so much, but I do like it a lot. Maybe because it's ripping the cigar galaxy, only 11 light years away. Maybe it's ripping it apart, but I do like this galaxy. I had a lot of fun taking this photo. I have taken a few photos, but I never actually had ever gotten this like this little dust lane right in here. So like that. All right, here's the pelican. Now, here you can see here's the head of the pelican and the beak going down like that. And it's really, really red. And this was over in the same area of the sky where the aurora was occurring, and we really couldn't we could not get that red out of it. It was just really, I know there's a lot of red in it anyway, but yeah. So that's our pelican. And so again, it was with the plane wave. Here's actually the beak of the bill of the pelican, and this is the head going back this way. So I got to tell you, this is the first time I've shot the pelican, so I'm not as familiar with this nebula as maybe some of you guys are that have actually taken it before. But and so that was the question. The question was, show us the beak, and so that's what I'm kind of tracing out here. All right.
It's probably not as bright as
Oh, not visually, yeah,
through a telescope.
Yeah.
You see it there.
yeah. We're getting it through a camera. All right, let's go on. Sunflower. Looks a little out of focus here on this when I blow it up like that, but I was able to get this as M63, the sunflower galaxy. Next. Okay, this is M74. So it looks a lot like M101, but just another galaxy here. All right, the next one is the crescent. I don't know, maybe some of you guys, with this one, we weren't able to get, I know there's a lot of nebulosity right in here, kind of a cross-hatching type arrangement, but I was only able to really get this outer edge of the crescent. It's filled with stars, but they were really you can kind of tell the nebulosity in the inside there, but yeah, this was the crescent, and about the best I could get off the crescent nebula. Helix, now the Helix Nebula, this one took a little negotiation because the Helix Nebula was actually just rising, and so when we put the plane wave into looking at the Helix, it was actually halfway. It basically cut half the aperture off of the plane wave. So basically, the dome wall is sitting right here, and the plane wave is just like looking right there, like through it. But it turned out pretty decently. So that was the Helix, and then next is it's a little out of focus on this, but it's really very sharp on my laptop here. But there's a really nice with this one. Of course, it's much larger than what I showed on the previous of M51, and you can really get a lot of great detail in the dust lanes. But for some reason, I'm not sure why this didn't turn, the focus didn't come in here, but it's pretty sharp over here. Anyway, yeah, you can really see a lot of the star forming region around here. The one thing is that in photographs I've seen, all these little what you look at like stars or bumps are pretty red, and I couldn't coax any red out of it in the image. So. All right, then just going on real quick, we went down from Glacier, went down to Bernalillo, New Mexico, met with Gary and Dina Scott, and Debbie right there, and we were basically waiting for the eclipse. This is Gary and I early in the morning, getting ready. It was pretty cold that morning, but I got to tell you, I mean, the New Mexico was just incredibly beautiful there. It was a really pretty place. But here's like we're during eclipse, we had a lot of people coming up from the park and everything, and they were really super interested in what was going on. And then I've got like a little video here. Well, thank you, Jim. I did put this over Zoom, and so a few people were actually able to connect to it. Funny thing that happened though is that right as we got the annulus, the Zoom completely dropped out, and we had some power issues. So anyway, I was able to get the annulus on there, and they see the annular, and then everything else kind of dropped out. So
That's the solar.
yes, it is.
You like, hey, I've done this before, with the solar filter in place, you can up the exposure just a little bit, show the red ring of fire effect.
Oh.
If I'd have been down there with this story, I could have had one thing then said, what the fuel is.
Oh yeah. What's that? Yeah, there's not a lot going on with it. The thing is if you start, messing with the brightness and everything, you can easily like overexpose it and kind of lose the image. It's hard enough as it is when you're actually doing this image, you're facing the sun. I was telling someone that I actually initially started with my scope shroud over me, but the wind started blowing so much, it would literally, the scope shroud was beating me to death. So I had to basically shed the shroud. Fortunately, I had a collapsible box, and I was able to put my laptop in the collapsible box and everything, and I was able to work with it there. But still, you have to really be careful. Once you're in mid eclipse, you really shouldn't be fidgeting around with the focus and with the brightness and everything, because you could easily lose your image. And the whole point is you really want to be able to capture that moment and everything. Oh, very good.
Small amount of light to make the camera more overexpose the image.
Oh, yeah.
Some -2 points.
Sure.
But you can set exposure to different things and create some unique effects.
Okay.
Or put some clouds in there.
Okay.
Which I've already done here.
Okay. Well, anyway, so that's kind of the end of it there. If you have any questions over that, I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have. I know we're a bit over time, so thanks, Naveen and all, for your patience. And
I have a microphone if anybody has a question in the room. We don't have anything on Zoom right now. I guess I have one question.
Sure.
Doug, with the plane wave and the ASI 533, were you cropping those images down, or is that based on?
I did crop some of those images down because there was a much, and the thing is that the plane wave, your magnification, if you look at that, if you look at the size of the chip on the ASI 533, you're somewhere around 264x, and so things are like really wide up in front of you. So some of the wide field, or some of the stuff that we were trying to do, like the heart and stuff like that, just weren't coming out because it was just so up close to it and everything. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question or not. Yeah.
Are you going back?
Well, I'll defer that question. We'll wait on that. Go ahead.
Hi, Doug.
Hey.
Annalise here.
Hi.
Thank you for your presentation. How did this experience change you as a person and as an astronomer?
Well, I think it made me more. First of all, that's a great question, Annalise, because it's not just about the hardware and all that. It's about you as a person experiencing this. So I kind of experienced kind of the same thing coming back that I did. It was just like I've had dreams of being out west. In one case, last year, it was about endless waves of this harvested grain they have out there. But then this time it was more like being in the desert and everything. But I would say it was awe-inspiring there, just to see. I mean, especially in New Mexico, and no, not just New Mexico, but we were in several different places. Just we live in a beautiful country, a beautiful land. We really need to be careful about how we take care of it. And I think that if anything, there's more, makes me more resolute to try to get the message out. if we don't take care of this, it's not going to be here for other people to enjoy. So I think that's one thing. I think, just again, seeing different sections of the US and different sections of, we went to Grand Tetons. It was beautiful, incredibly beautiful. I didn't share any of those photos, but yeah, it was really great. I will say that also too, that when you're out west, and it was really kind of just you. Here we're around a lot of people that can support us and everything if something happens. But when you're out like on Highway 2, or you're out, on in some of these places, you're on your own. And so it's like it makes you more resolute to kind of push through, get to your next goal. You become more cognizant of how limited your resources are. And I think, over here, it's great. You come home, you're able to take a shower as long as you want. The water's hot all the time, and when you're out in a camper and you're out there, you have to it's all resource management. You need to make sure that you manage those resources, and you don't overrun, because you can run out really quick. And the next place to go to kind of replenish could be 100 miles away. So it's very different. So it just kind of reinforces that idea that I kind of really need to conserve what I'm doing, conserve my resources. Yeah. Thanks for that question.
So about this, don't speak, Monsieur.
Oh yeah.
bit, what did you say other than M13?
So we called it the Great Cluster.
Okay,
I would say it would be
just
the
use
Great
the
Cluster.
name.
Yeah, we use the great name and the name, or the Hercules cluster, and then I'll tell you that my partner Mike has a great little way of playing with the sky. Like he'll do if you look at the Big Dipper, you look at the tail of the Big Dipper, you can see that it arcs over to Arcturus. So we always say to arc to Arcturus. But then he said, but Arcturus looks like an ice cream cone. Okay, and you have the ice cream cone, and you think about your favorite flavor of ice cream, and then you look over here to the upper left, and there's a smile. And of course, that smile is Corona Borealis. It's just above it. So it's kind of a neat thing that he does to the kids to get them and to kind of charm them into looking at the constellations and seeing different things out of the night sky. Yeah, so yeah.
I put an angular part around your neck.
Thanks. All right, thanks, Olivia.
Thank you very much, Doug. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Presentation.